This is Mike Tatarski, host of the Vietnam Weekly podcast, coming to you from Ho Chi Minh City. My thoughts today are with the residents of northern Vietnam, where the worst natural disaster to hit the country in decades, potentially half a century, if not longer, has unfolded over the last week, starting with the arrival of Typhoon Yagi last Saturday and continuing with extreme rain across many provinces. Vietnam is certainly no stranger to storms, but the scenes of devastation from across the north have been frankly shocking. I'm sure many of you will agree. I've seen similar images from places like the Gulf Coast in the U.S. where I grew up following hurricanes, but it's really devastating to see here. And of course, there are critical needs for help across the north, from the coast up to the mountains. And if you want to donate towards disaster relief, I really recommend Blue Dragon Children's Foundation. They're providing free food and emergency shelter to those impacted by the flooding and landslides. I've included a link to their page in the show notes. There are, of course, plenty of organizations doing amazing work, but I know the people at Blue Dragon personally and can vouch for their great work, and your money will not go to waste. I'm skipping the usual introductory monologue today, as I think this conversation speaks for itself. My guest today is Kelly Vaugh, founder and CEO of Dear Our Community and co-founder of MapMe, both of which you'll hear about in this episode. I've known Kelly for quite a few years now, and she's a vital part of the sustainability community here in Vietnam. Frankly, an incredible person. It took a while to schedule this discussion, a testament to just how busy Kelly is with all of her various endeavors. But I'm very glad it happened, and I hope you find it illuminating. We discussed her work with Dear Our Community, getting young people engaged in sustainability, the importance of businesses communicating with younger generations here on sustainability in an authentic way, how organizations and companies need patience for results from investing in communications, and MapMe's mission of focusing on Indigenous knowledge and addressing climate change, especially currently in the Mekong Delta. As always, if you have any comments, feedback, or guest ideas, get in touch at matatarski@gmail.com. Let's get to my conversation with Kelly. Kelly, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, very pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. You're a very busy person. Been trying to talk to you for a while with Dear Our Community, which is what I wanted to start with. So what is that and what are its goals?
Yeah, I know work has been crazy and I'm glad that we finally had a chance to talk. And thank you for inviting me to share about Dear Our Community. I understand that the name is quite strange sometimes for people. Yeah, it is also quite hard for Vietnamese to pronounce. But Dear Our Community, I found it in 2020. Actually, in the beginning, it was just a podcast, like you're having a podcast right now. The first idea is to inspire people about social impact career because I work in this field, I think more than 10 years now. I know how hard it is to navigate this journey. And also, I like working with the youth in Vietnam. In my previous job, I worked in a nonprofit where I work with a lot of amazing people and meet amazing people who are interested in social impact and sustainability and nonprofit. So I see there's a lot of amazing people trying to do the good thing. But of course, there's a lot of challenge too. At the same time, young people in Vietnam, when I talk to them, more and more young people really care about social issue and environment issue. But sometimes I feel like when they talk to me, they feel it's quite hard to comprehend and very difficult to engage because it seems like a very big problem. And they're still young, they don't know how to engage better. And of course, they also need to find a job too. One time, there's a young people ask me the question like, hey, you work for nonprofit, do you have a salary? So that's kind of like misperception about this sector. Also, so that's why I explained to them, yeah, I have a salary, even though the salary is not that competitive compared with the corporate sector, of course. But there's a lot of roles like, benefit, a value from working in social impact sector. However, I don't want to paint the rosy picture for young people, right? I told them that, yes, it's not easy, but it's a lot of potential. And I remember back then, when I work at a nonprofit, when I work with a lot of company and consult company around, social impact, philanthropy. And back then, a lot of companies talk about corporate social responsibility, right? So there was nothing about sustainability yet or ESG now.
Right.
So Back then, I even had to convince company that why you should invest in the community, why you should do philanthropy and stuff like that. But over the past few years, especially after COVID, a lot of conversation has changed, right? Now, a lot of companies talk about sustainability, ESG. Seem like CSR becomes something like outdated,
Yep.
but which is a good thing because that means company now have to do a lot of things in the long term, and a lot of pressure for them to. But at the same time, when I work in the consult company around sustainability and corporate social responsibility, I find there's a gap between what the leader set up the vision, who want to do the good thing, but the execution level, let's say young employees who work on the daily basis at the company, they don't understand it. So it seems hard for them to understand it. And even you can find some young people very passionate about social causes, but they don't understand very well what is CSR, what is sustainability. So when they, let's say, get assigned by a corporate leader and say, hey, can you go do this and that? They normally tend to go to the charity work, right? It seems easy to understand.
Right.
That means, most of the work focus on charity. Of course, it's important. Charity is important, but it's not enough, right? So that's why I find it's challenging for a lot of people work in the nonprofit trying to talk to corporate about this too, because maybe corporate, they don't have the capacity, even the employees, the talent, they don't have it to implement as well, right?
Right.
At the same time, young people in Vietnam now care a lot about the issue. They want to engage, they want to contribute, they want to showcase their talent. But it's not easy because in Vietnam, there's not a lot of places for them to learn about this kind of stuff. And there's not enough skill set for them to go work in this field. So that's why in 2022, I set up a company. We position ourselves as an impact-driven business to help young people in Vietnam learn and work in sustainability by providing content, knowledge through our content, skill training, incubator, and also job opportunity. So we match them with a company that interested in hiring good people to work in sustainability and ESG. So that's how the company started it. And so far, we find like after 2 years working nonstop in this, because in the past 2 years, a lot of people don't know what it is, didn't know anything about this. So now a lot of people start coming to us, especially also company coming to us and say, hey, can we work with you in communication? Can we work with you to find talent for our company? So that's good. That means there's a lot of change in growth in this market.
Yeah, and it's super interesting how you're kind of working with both, I guess, parts of this equation, the companies who need good people or need better communication, and also, young people who want to learn more or maybe get involved on issues like sustainability. And I guess on maybe the company communication side, you mentioned when we talked before that, young people in Vietnam and around the world, I think, kind of have different expectations for how companies communicate with them than maybe people my age or older or did in the past. What are their expectations here?
Yeah, you're right. Actually, just 2 days ago, I came across a report, the survey by Deloitte. It's called 2024 Gen Z and Millennial Survey. They basically survey a lot of Gen Z and Millennial across 44 countries about living and working with a purpose. From the survey, it's found that 86% of Gen Z and 89%, that means nearly 90% millennial and Gen Z people say they having a sense of purpose is very important to their overall job satisfaction and well-being. And nearly 50% have turned down on employer based on their personal ethic and belief.
Interesting.
So that is a huge number, and I think that's a great, also interesting movement. And also recently, Manpower also published another report. It called A Quest for Meaningful Work. Very interesting. They say 99% of Vietnamese responders indicated that having a meaningful network was important to them. However, only 11% feel satisfied with their current level of meaning at work. So you see there's a big gap between what they want and what they have right now. And that's the reason why if you follow Vietnamese news these days, sometimes you come across a post or a news coverage about why Gen Z often change their job.
Yep.
They change and they jump job very easily, right? I think there's a statistic in Q1 of this year, 2024. They say more than 26,000 people submitted for unemployment benefits, and 71% are young employees. So basically, for young people these days, it's no longer just a job. They're looking for something very different than the previous generation. I guess because they access to wider information, right? They have a lot of information to compare. They know what's going on around the world and what they want for their life, for example. So that's why I think now to work and to communicate with this generation is a bit more challenging than before, right? And it's harder for company to know what really Gen Z want and know how to communicate with them. So that's why I think that's what we're trying to also have the company in Vietnam is, Gen Z desire for authenticity. So that's why they want the brand content or communication that mean more authentic, more real, more touching. It's not just about, branding about your product or promotion anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, that's like a must, but now they desire for something more. Whether the brand stand for something like the earlier number that I mentioned, right? They desire for something more in terms of social impact, environment responsibility from the company. And that means company now need to also be careful about what they say in the public, because Gen Z or young people, they have more access to information, so they can see right away if you're not, authentic, or they can find out it easily than before, whether you're not authentic or not. And when I work with company, and I understand why a company want to promote about their company purpose and, good behavior or social responsibility activity. But if you're not careful, you can fall into, let's say, greenwashing trap.
Sure.
Right? These days, a lot of young people are talking about this too. They start questioning about whether the company do what they say. So that's why company these days, when they do communication, I think they need to think about whether they have the brand trust with the young generation or not, young customer, young employees or not, right? And Gen Z also prefer a lot about, personal and career development in their work. So if the company want to attract these people, they need to also think about their sustainability strategy, how to invest in the talent in the long term, and even the environment for working also need to be suitable for a young generation, right? So that is, I think, a lot of things has been changed so far. And what I observe on the ground, because I work a lot with the youth every day, and at grassroots level, I find that there's a new movement, and if a young company don't pay attention, they may be left behind, and maybe it become harder for company to find good people. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned the kind of the media coverage of Gen Z here in Vietnam. I notice sometimes this isn't unique to Vietnam, I don't think, but it's quite scolding, things about like, basically they'll interview an older manager and say, Gen Z employees, they're quitting all the time. They want breaks. They want this, they want that. I'm a millennial. Of course, this generation has gotten plenty of criticism. In the US, at least, there's a stereotype about us just wanting to spend money on avocado and expensive coffees. And I know it can be easy to kind of poke fun at Gen Z sometimes, but of course, we have to take their concerns seriously. And so, on that note, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I understand why people complain about that because, that's the reason why we need to have a more, really engaging and also smart communication, because of course, it's not just young people. We have also other generation too. So if we know how to communicate internally and externally well, young people will have more understanding, because young people, they have a lot of idea, they have a lot of energy, they want to do a lot of things, but they also need to understand what is there, what is the legacy, what is important that they need to build on, for example. So if company know how to balance it well between, okay, yes, we need your talent, we need your ideas, but also we have our own legacy, and legacy is also important for our company. And older generation, they have a lot of wisdom for you too. So if we can, I think, narrow the gap between the generation, that's also very helpful for young people to start understanding it, and also invest in and using their talent to create solution for the company. And also, I also keep telling young people that, you cannot say you have value until you prove that you have value. And a lot of companies, can say and can see whether you have value or not. So you have to prove first whether you can contribute the value. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point. So something else you mentioned when we've talked before is that sometimes companies, people or organizations expect really fast results when they invest in communication, maybe new programs or new communication styles aimed at, I guess, younger people. But what advice would you give to people expecting, rapid results from their communication investments?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I work with a lot of corporate. I understand the pressure about, you need to get return on investment. But to be honest, when a company care about sustainability or they talk about sustainability, right? I think we need to look at things in a long term view, because sustainability not allow you to look at the short term only. So that's why when I talk to company that interested in building brand in sustainability, I always advise them that you need to look at this as a journey and build brand trust that gonna take time, because it's not just like, oh, you say you are a great company and the customer will believe that. You need to engage with them. We engage with customer, you engage with your employees, you engage with the community around you in a strategic way, in the right way, because different stakeholders have different needs and different ways to engage with them. And no one size fits all, because you need to understand whether they like this or not. So you have to talk to them and understand what they need and work with them, because sometimes the company don't have to do everything, right? The company can listen to the customer, can listen to employees, can listen to the community and say, oh, you should do this and you should change that. And the company can take that into the consideration and input to create a strategy, what they can communicate with the employees, the customer, and also the communities, right? However, I understand the pressure or the needs to measure the impact also. And it's hard to find the measure impact, especially when you talk about social impact, right? You can measure, I always say that you can measure environment impact, because now you have technology, you have carbon footprint, you can measure. You can use technology to measure all your carbon footprint and stuff like that. You can measure it by, let's say, the bill of the electricity reduced or not. But how can you measure your employees' happiness? Or you can measure the community development, So it's harder, but you still can define it in the right way and measure, let's say, some quick win, something that you can measure right away. And then you talk and engage with those stakeholders to understand what they need and continue to improve it. Because like I said earlier, it's a journey. It's not like you have to do this and you get that, but it's you do this and then you learn and you improve it along the way. And you want to talk and to understand the customer better. And through that, I think that it can help the company to understand the stakeholder better and also build a trust with the customer and the stakeholder, right? And also, I think the company needs to think about how to create a meaningful engagement with the customer employees. Because, I know a lot of companies want to talk about sustainability, want to talk about climate issue, but I find sometimes those topics are often presented either very complex or very so simplified. That means either you don't understand it at all, or it's very simple. That means it's forget the nuance behind sustainability. So that's why we need to be thoughtful about how to make it, even for ourselves as DL community. We're trying to make our content more educational. Of course, for young people, you need to make it more interesting because now the attention span is very short, to make sure that they pay attention. But also, when they read at the content, they listen to something that we say is educational. That means they can learn something, right? And that means you can make your brand stand out and human, because you talk to people. You not talk about because you are a brand, but you talk to the people that understand about your value or trying to understand your value. So that is the advice that I have for the company who want to communicate their sustainability in, let's say, in Vietnam or anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly a lot of competition for attention. Across all demographics. Before we switch to a newer project you're involved with. If somebody is listening, whether a young person or from a company or somewhere in between, and they want to get involved with our community, how could they do that?
Yeah, so we very open to a lot of partnership because one of our strength is community.
Mm-hmm.
We build communities. Community here is not just young people who are interested in sustainability and social impact, but also we build community of companies and nonprofit, social enterprise, NGO also, an expert in sustainability and social impact sector. So if you want to join the community, come to us. We can, advise you and where to connect you with the right contact. Because I work in this field, I know how hard it is to work if you don't have the support,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have the right network. Because network can help you and community can help you go a long way. When you feel, let's say, it's challenging, you feel it's hard to overcome this issue or that issue, you can come to the community and ask for advice. And sometimes you just need motivation and having the right, the right community, they have the similar mindset or a good mindset. It can help you a lot on your journey. So yeah, that's the one thing. The second thing, we also work with a lot of company now, especially we're trying to help small and medium company to communicate their sustainability better and more strategic, because I know those small companies, they don't have a lot of budget for communication. So they cannot afford big agency, but they can come to us and we can help them to especially talk to young customer and young employees, and also talk to other stakeholder like company and nonprofit in the market, so they can position themselves in the right way about sustainability. So that's definitely we can help with because we have experience around not just community but also communication and social impact sector in Vietnam.
Okay, excellent. And I'll include links to your Facebook and all that as well in the show notes. But switching gears slightly, you're now also involved in a project called Map.me, or just MapMe, I suppose. You recently had an event here in Ho Chi Minh City. I unfortunately missed it, but focused on the Mekong Delta, I think. But what is MapMe, and what led to its creation?
Yeah, it's called MapMe.Asia. Because our mission is to help young people to live a fulfilling life and also create solution and contribute to society. So we create this MapMe.Asia to help achieve that mission. So MapMe, I want to explain the name a little bit. MapMe mean MapMe, of course, that's in English, right? And also in Vietnam or Vietnamese in the south, it's called MapMe. MapMe, that means near the treasure. Yeah. The reason why we use this name, because of course, if we work in Vietnam, we need to make sure the name easy for you Vietnamese to pronounce and use.
Yeah.
But also, it's also a message, right? So Mekong Delta, as you already know or read the news about, one of the very top place affected by the climate change issue or consequence. So now it's like near the threshold. So if we don't do anything right right now, or we don't change this quickly, maybe things gonna get worse and worse and worse. And I in the event that you missed last month, end of last month, we're trying to also give people different narrative about Mekong. It's not all about doom narrative. It's also a lot of opportunity if you find or look at the right opportunity. And you can see a lot of opportunity there if you invest in the Mekong region. And we can also help you with that with the MapMe.Asia. And also a little bit background I created but the idea came from the program that I participated last year called Australia Vietnam Young Leadership Dialogue. As the program is under the Mekong Australia Partnership, that means also MAP in short. And early this year, I got a chance from Australian government to go to Australia to learn about climate change. It's a master class. So it was really fascinating. And I after that, I decided to create this platform to connect young people from Mekong, not only in Mekong Delta, but also Mekong region with Australia to find solution for climate change and sustainability in the Mekong region. So that's the idea where the Mekong Delta, the MapMe.Asia platform created.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I know the listeners may know the Mekong Delta is a topic I pay a lot of attention to. I've had an episode or two of the podcast about it, write about it a lot in the newsletter. And one of the things you mentioned is a focal point as indigenous, natural solutions or indigenous knowledge. And today in addressing climate change, there's a lot of talk, of course, about tech, new tech solutions, which are important, obviously, but also people have been living in the Delta for centuries or thousands of years. Granted, the threats now are huge and kind of combining one on top of the other. But how important is indigenous knowledge to the Delta or other areas?
Hmm. Yeah, that's right. Thank you for asking me this question. So I was born in Saigon, not in Mekong Delta. Many people thought I was from Mekong Delta. Um, but when I was growing up, Mekong Delta, the old illustration on paper or on the education as a very nature resources abundant, right? So there's a lot of food, a lot of resources, a lot of things that local people can use to live by, even very abundant, right? Um, I guess that's one of the reason, but also combined with the nature of the immigrant community going to Mekong Delta to the south, for example, because I'm not sure if you know about this, but the migration story of Vietnamese from central and the north to the south. So those people who migrate early from the especially the central area first to the Mekong region or to the south, those were prisoner who have no family connection, no job, basically have nothing, and they just want to have a new life. So they migrate to the south with the Nguyen dynasty, Nguyen Lor, um, and combined with the resources there is a lot of abundant resources that influence how people in the south and the Mekong Delta behave and think. So when you go to Mekong, that's why I like the Mekong Delta, because people are very generous,
Yeah, they
right?
are.
So they're willing to give you, offer you food. They smile all the time because for them, this is the new place and they can find a lot of things here. However, this has changed because the environment has changed, right? The climate change has changed things. So that means now a lot of issue about, uh, soil intrusion to water scarcity,
Hmm.
and also soil depletion, because a lot of people use chemical to grow fruit and rice. So that's why things have changed a lot for the Mekong Delta people. And I read a statistic. They said that over 10 years, 1.7 million people migrated out of the Mekong Delta,
Mm.
and 60% of them are young people. So every time I go to Mekong, I always talk to young people and ask them, hey, do you want to stay here? Do you want to find things here? And most of the time, they always tell me they would love to stay, but they don't know how, because there's no job, there's no opportunity, the education is not so good. So normally, whenever they have time or they have chance, they have opportunity, they will migrate to the big city like Saigon, Dong Nai, Bình Dương to find job, which is understandable because everybody want to find a good job to support their life. But I think that's create a lot of challenging for the Mekong region, right? So because first you don't have skilled worker there, you don't have human talent in the region, and now if you go to some area in the Mekong, you see a lot of like old and children, because young people, they migrate out of the region and work and send money back home. Yeah, so that's what I found about the Mekong region. I think, okay, was it the same for years and years? But actually, when I had a more chance recently to go visit a lot of people, especially farm and farmer in the Mekong region. And I talked to them, I realized that, wow, actually in the past, local people live harmony with the environment, right? Before the Industrial Revolution, people live very, very harmonized with the environment. So funny thing, because one time I went to the UNDP event in Bangkok, and when they talk about natural solution-based solution, right? Natural-based solution, sorry. And I was thinking, okay, this is a new term, but I just suddenly remember the term in Vietnam is called Thuận Thiên. Thuận Thiên, that means you follow the nature.
Mm.
right? So I say, is it the same? And I asked the people, they say, yeah, the same. So that means those were actually being used for a long time in the Mekong region. But recently now, development world or developed countries start to use it. So that means a lot of wisdom disappearing because, like I say, a lot of young people migrate up the region, and a lot of family they want to send their kids to the big city, so they don't have a need or the need to transfer the knowledge to young people because they want the young people not to work in the farm,
Right.
right? So they want the young people to work in the service sector, for example, make a lot of money. So that's the challenge for the Mekong, and I think that's losing a lot of like wisdom from local people. And now we want to talk about, sustainability. We want to talk about, you know, uh, living harmony with the nature, protect the nature. I think it's time for us to rethink and relook again about the local knowledge, indigenous knowledge, how the local people has been living with the environment for a long time. And even right now, for example, over the past 10 or 20 years, you can see the climate change happen. And if you look at the news, I think you reach many, like, let's say, alarming news about this issue. But when you go to the Mekong Delta, when I talk to the farmer, they're very flexible, they're very adaptive. So they change the way of their farming. Not all of them, but many of them do that because, of course, that's their livelihood. They need to adapt
Yeah.
so they can survive. So that is actually a lot of things we can learn from the local people. It's no longer that you coming to the local community and you enforce your idea, but you have to listen and understand what is there, what is the access in the community, what is the wisdom there. So can you, have that wisdom become something useful or helpful for local people and help the community develop. So that's what we're trying to do with the platform. That's why you say, yeah, our focus is how to highlight the importance of local or indigenous knowledge in climate change solution, right? And of course, local knowledge or indigenous knowledge may be not enough. The climate change has become more and more, worse because now the weather pattern may change a lot. So that means we need to combine with technology and science, right?
Right.
And that means young people can play a part in it because young people now very tech savvy. They know how to use technology, AI. So how can they come back, or at least they stay there too, to find solution using the local knowledge from their, from their center, from their family, and combine with technology and science to create solution for climate change. And we want to build a platform so everyone can go there and find solution for climate change. And also, if we can build that platform well enough, I think we can create a lot of insight for company and also, expert or even researcher come into the Mekong region and understand what's going on, what are the opportunity, how we can invest in this, right? And even the talent, right? So if young people have opportunity to access to this kind of thing earlier when they're still in the hometown, it can build a capacity. And later on, when the company want to invest in the region, they can find the talent there. So that is the idea of the platform. What we want to try to solve the challenges that young people face these days in the Mekong region.
Yeah, that's all excellent. And I mean, it's a nice, more positive outlook, I suppose. Like you said, it is easy to, if you read a lot about the Mekong Delta, it's pretty easy to just fall into kind of doom and gloom about it, between climate
Yeah.
change, the problems you listed. It's rising sea levels, sand extraction, upstream dams, the canal they're building in Cambodia potentially. You can read all that and just be like, well, this place is screwed, for lack of a better word. But as you said, there's also a lot of opportunities for innovation and solutions. And I mean, it is the country's biggest agricultural area, so they will need to figure something out. And it's interesting to see, again, farmers adapt sometimes with assistance from development agencies. But for example, growing or like planting mangroves and shrimp farms, or growing different types of crops. If you used to grow mango or something, starting to grow something that's a bit more salt tolerant, since there's more salt water in certain areas now. It won't be easy, but definitely a noble goal you have.
Yeah, actually, I think that if you look at the Mekong region, you see a lot of potential because I talked to a lot of, like, let's say, new farmer, for example, because they now using the method, we call it natural-based solution or organic solution, to grow their crop and upgrade or improve the value for their product. So now they export to other market, even Australia, US, Europe, for example. So they make more money actually, and they invest in the community because now they can also hire local people. But the challenge is they still told me that, okay, it's hard to find talent here in the Mekong region because young people, when they have opportunity, they go to the city. So the people who left behind normally don't have enough skill and awareness. So it's harder for them to actually find talent. So that's why you can see the vicious circle, right? So when local company or local business, they cannot find talent, how can they compete with other company? So what we're trying to do is have people understand this and invest in the young talent in the community. Because when we talk about sustainability, you have to talk about long term. And if you don't willing to invest in the long term, it's harder to do so, right? So you cannot wait for everything to be perfect and then, harvest the result from that. But you need to also put in investment. I know it's not easy, but I think that's it's really a lot of, because right now a lot of people, still the Mekong Delta is still open, and a lot of people still need a lot of help. So if you go there, actually create more impact. So that is the reason why we want to create a platform for company, investor, expert even. If they want to go to the Mekong region, they want to find opportunity, they want to invest, we can help them with that. And through that, we can help building the capacity of young people in local community there.
Yeah, great. All wonderful stuff. And as listeners can hear, you've got a lot on your plate. So I think we can end it there. I'll include links to these programs and projects in the show notes. I certainly hope to attend or will attend, future MapMe events. I'm bummed I missed that one.
Yeah.
But Kelly, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me. Really, enlightening always to talk to you. I'm really impressed by your work and, the people you work with. So thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Mike. And I hope to see you at the future event of MapMe and DL community.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Thanks again.
Bye. Thank you.
That's it for this week's episode of the Vietnam Weekly podcast. Connect with Vietnam Weekly on Threads, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Thank you so much for listening. Please rate or review the show on your preferred podcast platform, and see you next week.